And I think, at the heart of this life for all of us is, what is it that Baba is telling me? What is really touching something in me? And what do I really want to act on practically in my life? One of the things which I think has touched many BKs, and something which has very much been in my mind over the past maybe year or so, is that almost in every single muli, Avyakt Muli, of the past 12 months, Baba has used the word suddenly, or some variety of the word suddenly. And I left Madhaban around this time 12 months ago. And really, I went back to Australia thinking, suddenly this is going to happen, and suddenly that's going to happen. I was waiting for things in the drama. And there's no doubt that suddenly things were happening in the drama, and things still are happening in the big picture. But during the year, I began to think that it's not only suddenly out there, it's also suddenly in here. Sometimes it's suddenly that a sanskara is triggered, an account emerges in the self, some powerful feeling that perhaps I haven't even felt before suddenly comes up and starts to influence my life. And then even more recently, I've been thinking about suddenly in even a different way. That suddenly we can change too. And so it seems to me that time is moving very fast. The speed of the drama is fast. The situations are happening. The speed of the internal accounts is also fast. Do you feel that sometimes? Things emerge powerfully. But at the same time, I feel that the speed of change can be really fast at this time too. And one of the things which, I've taken this season in little chats with Daddy Janki is that she keeps talking about the ability to realize the self. And I think, that's a huge art in life. To actually, to see myself with clarity, who I am and what I need to do. Without all the influences, perhaps, of sometimes, as she was saying, feeling that, I'm really good, things are fine, and then swinging to feelings of disheartenment, to deeply see the reality of who I am, without, perhaps, if I can say, an inflated feeling of who I am, or a deflated feeling of who I am, but I can see who I am and what I need to do. And it's one of the things which I've been thinking about, this visit in Madhaban. Because when I come to Madhaban, and I'm sure it's the same for many of you, I often think, what do I need to do now? Sometimes we just go on in the same pattern, but we need to step back and really see, what does Baba really want me to do now? And what I'm feeling is that seeing the suddenlies of accounts, the suddenlies of the world, the suddenly to change, I've been feeling that I need to become really strong, really fast, And when I say strong, become so stable, absolutely rock solid in my sense of myself, so that I don't feel that any scene of drama, any personality, any situation knocks me off my seat of stability. I'm learning, but there's a real clarity of who I am. And one of the things which I've been thinking about is just, in terms of this, my relationship with drama. Because I often feel that I have a relationship with Baba, and Baba is so lovable, isn't he? Isn't he? Baba is so attractive, and Baba is stable and so easy to love. But I also have a relationship with drama. And often I think of drama as like a moody person, you know? In the sense that you never know how they're going to be, how they're going to respond. You know, when you live around a moody person, or you work with a moody person, you just never know how they're going to react to situations. And in a sense, that's like the drama. The drama's like a moody individual that throws up different feelings constantly. And yet, I think that for us to move forward, I really have to learn to be very, very detached from the influences of drama. And so my touchstone over the last so many months for me is a little thing. I love to sort of take an idea and keep practicing it. And the little thing in my mind has been, how much am I the observer, or how much am I the absorber of the drama? The observer is the sign of a soul who has deep wisdom, who has a loving relationship with drama. The absorber is the sign that actually the depth of knowledge hasn't really gone into the soul, or I'm not applying what Baba is really teaching me. Because a scene of drama comes in front, and I maybe observe it, 70%, but still 30% I'm absorbing from that scene of drama. And sometimes I think of it that each scene of drama is like a cocktail of many things, You think it's like you look through your eyes, and in this scene there's a whole lot of personalities with a lot of sanskaras, behaviors, atmospheres. There's so much going on. And if I haven't really learnt to observe, I absorb it, and it kick-starts my thinking. You're thinking, you're trying to move in the direction towards Baba and Baba's knowledge and self-realization. But then the drama enters your head, takes over and kick-starts your thinking on a different train. And so often it's like the drama is ruling my thinking. Even after so many years of Gyan, I don't have a loving relationship with drama. I'm not detached from drama. Drama is actually often a bigger influence than Baba. Often it's drama that has more control over my feelings even than Baba. Proving, fighting. You know how you fight the drama? I don't like it. We want to rewrite the script. We want to rewind and say, I don't like it. And yet, one of the things, if we sit down and let truth trickle into my feelings, eternal truth tells me the scene is fixed. The scene is fixed. And just holding these thoughts and thinking about what Baba has been telling us to practice this season, what I've been doing is practicing 4 things which I feel help me develop this loving and detached relationship with drama. The first is the practice of applying a full stop. These are fundamental things. I think we've heard them 1,000 times, but often I feel, how much do I actually use them in real life? Because these are the things that make me spiritually strong. The first, how much do I practice applying a full stop? The second, how much do I practice being bodiless? The practice of being bodiless. Because I personally feel until I apply the full stop, very difficult to be bodiless. The third, how much do I practice being the observer, not the absorber? And the fourth thing, purity in relationships. The reason being, I honestly feel only when I can really observe the drama can I sustain a fairly constant feeling of goodwill for others. If I absorb a little bit, I will get a little bit hurt, and therefore my good wishes for others really fluctuate. Often we just try to have good wishes, but unless we've built a spiritual foundation, it's not really easy to do. And the first one is this whole thing of practicing putting a full stop. And I don't know whether you remember, but in the second or third Muli of the season, I'm not very good at the dates, Baba went on a tour. I love it when Baba goes on a tour to see. Do you remember? And what did Baba see was missing? Do you remember? Baba said what was missing was the children's ability to put a full stop. And then Baba went on to say that at the final scenes and the final times, it will be essential to actually apply the full stop. And so Baba often tells us these things. But for me, I think the real thing about being a BK is practicing. Quite frankly, at first we may not be successful. After even a few weeks or months, it's only minor, 5-10%. But it's this constant practicing and learning that actually builds spiritual strength. So many times I think we know so much, but it's not applied knowledge. We're not really knowledgeful. And a little scene of drama comes and just my emotions just kickstart and take me over. It's like I don't resort to knowledge. I actually still allow my emotions to just take over and distort my view of what's really happening. And over some months I've been practicing applying the full stop. And it's really good to sort of practice and observe yourself. Because sometimes I can do it, but many times I can't. And realizing that there's many bad habits that I think we have in terms of my relationship with drama. It's like in the second half of the cycle, I've built up all these mental habits responding to drama. The first one I find is the habit to analyze the scenes of drama. Actually, to analyze is a good thing. But if I can do it in a few seconds, when it goes on and on, what does Baba call it? He calls it expansion. When you think about it, one scene of drama, a few seconds of drama, and I open it out into an enormous story inside my own head. It's just a few seconds, maybe a few minutes. And yet this huge story develops inside my own head. And sometimes, I think of it, it's like I write a book, I publish the book, and then I promote it to everybody I know. It's like, completely out of proportion that we allow this story to really grow inside my head. And to me, one of the things that I've been thinking about in terms of this is that we're all here because we're old souls. We've almost, I would say, had all experiences in the drama. And we're here to clean up my story, my past story, and have a fresh start with Baba and move on to the Golden Age. Ultimately, I'm here to clear my account, clear my burden, and become light. And yet sometimes I think it's interesting to ask myself the question, am I settling my accounts? Am I sustaining my accounts? Or am I increasing my accounts? Because quite honestly, I think the scene of drama happens, and instead of settling it with a full stop, I actually think, analyze, and what I do is I'm sustaining the account. I'm actually not settling the account. And if I start to speak about it more, etc., it even means that I'm starting to increase the account. So I've come to Baba to become pure, to become light. But sometimes in my innocence of these reactions to things around me, I'm often increasing my account. And I think that, analysing is actually a good thing. The Sato-Pradhan form of analysis is to understand quickly. Understand and then finish. But when it starts to become Sato, Raja, I think a lot. And by the time it's Tamo-Pradhan, it's just thinking. And it's almost like, when you're on your computer and you minimize a file and put it on your toolbar. I'm not very computer literate, but there's so many things you minimize. There's so many scenes of unfinished business sitting in my intellect that, keep emerging and influencing me. I haven't been able to resolve them. I haven't been able to put the full stop. And so they just keep reoccurring. And therefore, sometimes I don't feel, well, am I really progressing? Because I'm sustaining so much of this stuff, I'm not really, resolving it. One of the things I've noticed in myself is, why do we do this? Baba says, children, let it go, move on. And we do sometimes, but other times we don't. I have a right to overthink, I just take it on board to think about it because they're wrong, and I don't actually see that I'm creating wasteful thoughts at that time. And so Baba says, children, put a full stop, clear the account. How much do I allow my mind to go forward in this constant analysis? The second thing that often we do is we just similar, we react. Rather than putting the full stop, we react. And as soon as we react, we dip into my feelings. We dip into sometimes hurt feelings, upset feelings, frustrated feelings, whatever that may be. We dip into those feelings. And once you dip into them, it's hard to get out, It's really hard to move yourself out. It's not that we should suppress the feelings, that's true. But one of the things which touched me most from last season, an incredible thing that Baba said in just a few lines is, and it's been one of my touchstones, is he said, children, right is right and wrong is wrong, but don't bring it into your feelings. To me, that was the best definition of being a detached observer that I've ever heard. That things do happen inaccurately in the drama. People do behave inappropriately. We do see it and we need to understand it. But once I allow it to grip a hurt or whatever, I get stuck and I can't let go. And once again, I'm not really settling, resolving, clearing the past and becoming spiritually stronger. I keep sustaining all this stuff within me. Perhaps another bad habit is to suppress things. You know how sometimes you're in a scene of drama, something happens and you're busy, you don't really have time to think about it. So we just sort of put it on the hold button. You put that scene on the hold button and then you get on with your work. And then what happens at night time? You sit down to remember Baba. What happens? What happens? The scene clicks into the mind, doesn't it? It's like a TV screen. The file comes up again of unresolved feelings from that situation. And so it's then, so I suppress it, but it will re-emerge at some time. Or even questioning, another bad habit, questioning the drama. The scene happens, the situation happens, and I just question, that shouldn't have happened, that's not fair, that's not right. Baba often mentions this, and it's interesting, I feel, to just see that when I need to put a full stop, what actually happens? Do I just fall into the analysis process? Do I react and then get stuck in certain feelings I can't change? Do I just question? Do I suppress it? Actually, Baba was saying in one of the mulis that when we learn how to merge the expansion, it's like we become equal to Baba. And what I've been thinking about for me, what does it really mean to put this full stop? To me, it's almost like in 1 second, I scan the scene 100% through the filter of knowledge with wisdom. So I see the scene through the filter of karma, of drama, of the soul's karmic story, of the soul's part, of the atmosphere. I understand it in a second and I resolve it in a second. It's not like I have to go into the extension of it. The ultimate state of knowledge, I would say, is to read the scene instantly. And so I'm not suppressing anything. I've understood it, I've resolved it, it's packed away. I can step into the next scene with a clear mind. Otherwise, I'm trying to live in the present, and I'm constantly carrying the feelings of the scenes of the past that don't allow me even to take the benefit of the present. And that's really, to me, such a sign of a knowledgeful soul, where we've applied knowledge, that I'm actually I'm looking through that filter, and I just understand all the actors, all the parts of the actors, the sanskaras, full stop, and I can move forward. Because why I really began to think about that and practice that is I believe that unless I really do put the full stop, it's hard to do the second step of becoming bodiless. Because thoughts dangle in your mind, and Baba's giving the signal to go beyond. And once again, Baba, for so many years, Baba's saying equally important to applying the full stop and just, practicing, just letting go, just let go. Don't indulge in the need to think about things, overthink. But just to put the full stop, in the same way, Baba was saying, children, it's essential to have the practice of bodilessness. And to me, that, first to put the full stop, and second to practice bodilessness is probably the absolute formula for inner strength. To just chip away at chronic weakness and fragility and sensitivity. Because, Baba was saying that these days, everyone is busy, and so we're all so busy, and, sometimes we're so caught up in doing things. And yet I love the example that Baba gave when he said that if you're busy and you're thirsty, what do you do? What do you do if you're busy and you're thirsty? You have a drink, don't you? And in a way, Baba was saying, if you're busy, stop for a minute. This will it's like building strength. It's educating myself to build strength. Otherwise, we just go on having faith in Baba. And even after years, sometimes we think, well, have I really got that much stronger? Because we actually don't really, I think, apply the fundamentals and really practice them. Because I often feel becoming bodiless is the fitness of Brahman life. And the wonder to me is that we study the ocean of knowledge for years. We absorb the ocean from Baba for ultimately the 1 second practice of letting everything go in a split second. In 1 second to let go the consciousness of my body. In 1 second to let go all the relationships of this body. In 1 second to let go the service and the doing stuff. In 1 second to let go all feelings of my responsibility. It's amazing when you think of such a high thing. It's like everything that sustained me in the second half of the cycle, My relationships, my roles, all the stuff that's given me a sense of self. Baba said, children, just in 1 second, let it go. And I've found in my practice, once again, you can do it, but often I've really found the addiction to doing things is so deep. You know, and even when you stop in that second to become bodiless, the mind goes to what I have to do, because that has sustained me for a long time. You know, you do an action and you do receive something. You receive support, you receive encouragement, you receive love. And it's so deep to be pulled into wanting to do something to get something in return. And often I've found that's where the mind can really go quickly. But you know what I think is the beauty of the practice of being bodiless? Is that it's like a 1 second assessment of my stage. Because when I let go, this incredible process, Baba says in 1 second, this fitness to become the eternal seed like God, like Baba, the eternal form beyond everything, it reveals to me where I'm at. It reveals to me, in my own personal experience, if you sit down and you let go, observe where you get stuck. Because sometimes in this process of letting go, I get stuck in the game of analysis, like we were saying, or I get stuck in trivial thinking, wasteful thoughts. I get stuck somewhere, and in a sense it reveals to me where I need to do a little bit of work. That's the beauty. As I start to let go, let go, let go, let go, it starts to reveal to me what's pulling my mind, where I am getting stuck. It also reveals to me where I'm holding on. You know, I'm letting go. Where am I holding on? In which relationships? Whether it's a dependent one or what's the opposite of dependence? You know, I think often it's not so much the attachments, it's, well, it has both sides to it. It's the feelings of anger and frustration. It reveals to me where I'm still holding on, where I have dependencies. It reveals to me where I'm still in bondage. And to me, the beauty of this letting go, this process of letting go, is it starts to show me a 1 second assessment of my counts and perhaps where I need to put my focus of my efforts at this time. Because for me, many times, I think many times as BKs, we think, yes, Baba says be bodiless, so I start to practice be bodiless. And everything happens except becoming bodiless. Have you had that experience? Your mind just floods with thoughts, floods with feelings, floods with stories, floods with unfinished business, and sometimes subtly it affects my confidence. You know, I sometimes feel, even in Brahman life when we get really caught up in service, it's because if I find yoga challenging, if I find it difficult to have a good connection, I start to lose myself in my old habits of doing. Service is good, but when it just becomes a response because I find it hard to have that real connection with Baba. And I think that what I've really observed in myself is that, to me, yoga is the result of each aspect of my life. And the way I feel these days, that if yoga's not good, excuse me, don't look at the hour that I'm sitting in meditation, look at the other 23 hours of my life. That's often where I will see what is pulling my intellect. Because, you know, the image sometimes I have is that yoga's like a pyramid, and at the top of the pyramid is the ability to let go, become bodiless, absorb in one Baba completely, totally, with nothing else. But we often want to go straight to the top top of the pyramid without walking up the steps. And the steps are is that each part of Brahman life has to be accurate. Otherwise, as you let go, it pulls your mind. And that's why we do need deep knowledge. We need to be accurate with Srimad and these things. Baba just doesn't say, because he wants us to follow things. There's a deep karmic reason for every Srimad. And if I don't follow it, that inaccuracy often will pull my mind. Even my relationships. To me, probably the biggest area, if relationships aren't accurate, if I can use that word, as you go on your journey to remember Baba, to let go, become bodiless, you get stuck in feelings or processing your relationships. And so it's almost like each block has to be built accurately to release the soul. As I said, the knowledge, the love, the renunciation, quality relationships, each building block has to be there, and then the soul can really fly. And it's why I think probably the biggest area is in our relationships with each other, because there's still a lot of inaccuracies. And one of the things which Baba said a few maulis ago was that if you don't have deep happiness, look at purity in relationships. If you don't have deep happiness, look at purity in relationships. What is meaning? The subtle attitudes and the subtle feelings I carry in my relationships with others. And that's where I think that once I've applied the full stop, I start to practice the bodiless stage. I see, have I built the pyramid? Because if I haven't, really it's the product of each aspect of my Brahman life. My mind gets pulled here, pulled there. And it's like I then have to see, okay, I have to resolve something in this relationship. Maybe I have to be more accurate in my actions. Maybe I have to look at certain principles Baba's giving, not through a fundamentalist view, but the realization that these are preventing me, these are inaccurate actions that won't allow the soul to really fly beyond to Baba. Because I really feel that when I've applied the full stop, I've become bodiless, you are naturally the detached observer. You don't have to think, I must be detached, I mustn't let this upset me or influence me. It's natural that the soul sits in the forehead and observes the scenes of drama. What a sweet feeling, such a sweet feeling, a feeling of mastery, and a real sign that knowledge is just not believed, it's experienced and it's applied when I really just sit in that forehead. And yet, when I let go and I have that practice of being the bodiless soul, it's like just naturally I begin to observe the scenes rather than absorb the scenes. And it's, I think, such a sweet feeling when I'm able to do that. And not feeling that all those scenes of drama are controlling my thinking, pushing my thinking, the behaviors of people. No, I'm pushing my thinking in the direction I want. I now have a relationship with drama which is detached and loving. So I'm not absorbing, I'm observing. Because I've often thought the fourth thing, how to sustain good wishes for others. I honestly feel unless I'm really detached, it's not possible. One day you're having good wishes, the next day, no. 1 hour good wishes, the next hour not. Because I allow the influence to seep into my feelings, and then all the feelings, the reactions, the injustice, all that stuff really comes up. And like I was saying, Baba said, which I really loved, when Baba said that if you don't have deep happiness, look at pure purity in relationships. And, you know, I often feel that, you know, how do I measure my purity? And to me, I think relationships is a real indication of my level of purity. Because the way I see it is that when we come to the end of the drama, at the end of the cycle, at this time, before Brahman life, when we come into Brahman life, we have every imaginable emotion in my, sanskaras, from the most loving, beautiful, respectful. We have all those sanskaras sitting in my subconscious. And at the other end of the spectrum, we have all the other stuff, the really hurtful stuff, the angry stuff, the upset stuff. The whole spectrum is sitting in my subconscious. When I come into contact with others, they will trigger all that stuff sitting in my subconscious. Some trigger the beauty. They trigger such sweet feelings in me to express the depth of my love, which is one of the most beautiful feelings in life. Others trigger the other stuff in me. It's the way life is. The Jnani soul takes responsibility for what's coming up in me. But the Ajnani soul wants to shoot the messenger. That person becomes a messenger for something which is stored in my subconscious. And so sometimes, even after many years of Brahman life, we still, and it's true, people don't behave well sometimes. But still, I am the manager of what's happening inside me. And if I allow it to take me over, then actually I've allowed myself to come under the influence of that other individual. And I feel this is the role of the Brahman family. The role of the Brahman family is to help me develop purity in relationships. Because we have to re-educate ourselves. This is the learning of the confluence age. We became impure through relationships, and actually through relationships we become pure. And I often feel that if I can live in the heart of the Brahman family and sustain fairly loving, good relationships, I know I've achieved a level of purity. Because life means, even in Brahman life, there will be differences, there will be disagreements, there will be conflicts. That's not the problem. The problem is how I respond. Do I use knowledge and understand it, or do I just go through my old hurt feelings, my ego reacts, I feel resentful, as I was saying, still sometimes after so many years as Baba's child, we go through the instant something happens in the drama, in a personality, it triggers my old feeling, I just surrender and give in. I'm actually not using the knowledge. I'm not a Jnani soul, even. And some of us are experts at articulating the knowledge to others. It doesn't mean I apply it in my practical life, because often that's not the case. And so it's like the Brahman family, I feel, helps to reveal to me what's stored deep in the soul. And when it comes to the surface, I look at it and I begin to work with it to bring change. Because, what is my level of purity at this time? How do I measure this purity, especially in relationships? And to me, if I still reject people, if I still have the habit, if someone does something, I cut them off. You go into the silence mode, I'm not talking to you anymore, that sort of stuff, or I just ignore, then these are tamo pradhan sanskaras. If I'm that really bossy, dominating type, it means it's still, some of these tamo stuff is still sitting inside me, If I'm critical, constantly critical, of others, if I easily get upset from others, and when I get upset I start to talk to people and form groups or get people to support me against others, I think that's still a sign of tamo. It's like I still have some tamo sanskaras. Now Baba's talking about having purity in relationships to be happy, because each time in relationships I dip into these critical feelings, these hurt feelings, forming groups, gossiping. It's like, can I be happy? It's like I've got to realize that, yes, they may have behaved badly, but I'm behaving in the same way as them by reacting in this way. When we start to move out into the Rajo stage, to me, the Rajo stage is preferences. It's a subtle one. When we come into the Copper Age, it's more like, rather than appreciating everyone, I prefer you to you. I like you, but I don't really like you. There's no doubt we will perhaps gravitate to some people more because we have similar ideas, sanskaras, outlook, but preferences is a sign of a Rajo stage. When I'm really starting to become more pure, the Sato stage, I feel, is really when I can start to generate good wishes and pure feelings for others around me. And to me, that's when I get strong and I begin to progress fast. When I start to realize that if I dip into these old stories, I get stuck. I can't spiritually progress. Even when other people are behaving inappropriately, I remember, right is right, wrong is wrong, but don't bring it into my the negativity into my feelings, because that's when it's really hard to change it. And even, I think, when it becomes Sato Pradhan, is the thing that all of us strike at some point in our life, that sometimes, we're making effort to change. We know the efforts I'm trying to do, but no matter what I do, someone disapproves of me, doesn't accept me, doesn't love me, even opposes me or rejects me. That's, I think, something which goes really deep into the soul and hurts deeply, when we are rejected. And yet, so usually that brings out a reaction that I still can maintain my state of mind even if someone is like that towards me. That's when I can say that there's such purity. And perhaps when we look, we all have a little bit of each one within me. But it's like, rather than seeing the other person, seeing that I want to become pure, and if I keep reacting from my tamo pradhan, even my rajo level, I'm sustaining myself at that level. I'm sustaining those sanskaras. So it's like I wake up each morning, I have Amrit Vela, I try to remember Baba, become powerful, and then during the day, I go back to these old sanskars and sustain this feeling about you, that feeling about you, that feeling about your behavior, and then I sort of feel, I love Baba, I am a Brahman, but I'm not moving forward. I'm not becoming really strong. And that's where, to me, this deep detachment from others is essential. Because I love the spiritual law that says to be truly loving, you must be detached. I think I want to be truly loving, because to me that will take you into such a state of self-respect when you can express your love so deeply. But if I'm attached, if I'm dependent, what happens is that I can't be constantly loving. You will influence me. I can't be really stable in my feelings of love for you. And so this is, I feel, often we want to have good relationships with others, and we try and we think about and we work it through, but really, unless the groundwork's done, unless I really, on a daily basis, a scene happens, I have a choice to analyze, think, go into it, or I can just put the full stop, move on. not suppress it, full stop based on understanding. If I practice bodilessness, it's like I'm regaining my spiritual strength. And then I can observe the drama. And while observing the drama, if you behave well or if you don't, if you do actions I like or if you don't, still I can generate goodwill, because my own experience time and time again is observing myself, that each time I have good feelings, loving feelings, caring feelings, you go to a place of purity in your sanskaras to generate that. That's what I love. It's like you go to a place in yourself that is clean, is elevated, and every time you generate, you strengthen your purity. It's the opposite, the same. And this is my own observation, that each time I generate the hurt feeling, the ill feeling, the negative feeling, the bad feeling, I sustain it in my sanskars. It's like, and then I feel stuck. It's like I am Baba's, but I'm sort of stuck in a place, because I feel the main thing, we're so stuck in this gravity of human relationships, whether Brahman or non-Brahman, and we sort of can't lift out, because until we do lift out, we don't really have good yoga with Baba. Even when we sit in meditation, the processing of my feelings about what's going on around me sometimes doesn't release the soul to really have that deep connection with Baba. And I began to realize that good wishes are not just there to have good relationships with others. They're actually to free me from the gravity of this waste and this sustenance of these tamo and rajo sort of sanskaras that aren't that bad really, but they just keep me in a place where I don't feel that real feeling, like, you know, that lovely feeling, wow, I really am becoming an angel, and that cleanliness internally. And so we need to really build the foundation. And I suppose that, you know, the way I'm sort of feeling about it at the moment is that it's just a daily practice. It's almost like, you know, when you want to become physically fit, you exercise daily. You know, you're conscious all the time of, you know, perhaps looking after your health without becoming too body conscious in that sense. But in the same way, spiritually, if I want to really become strong, if I want to reduce the ups and downs, the influences, it's like all the time, practice, applying the full stop, observing how I do, practice again. And even if I not doing it well, keep practicing. You start to learn how to put the full stop, let go of the scene of drama, resolve it, clear it, so it doesn't hang in my head. It then allows me to really go beyond and connect with Baba. I get Baba's power, I observe the drama, and I have more strength to sustain an attitude, like a spiritual attitude towards others. Because, you know, sometimes I think we do say to Baba, okay, Baba, you know, this soul is a challenge to me, but I'm going to have such, you know, effort to have good wishes for that soul. And we try and we try and we try, but they just don't work. You know, who's tried good wishes for souls that don't work? And then we think, you know, what's wrong with them? What's wrong with them? They don't respond to my good wishes. Because I think, you know, once again, we learn through our own experience that sometimes, I think it's a very subtle thing. I feel it's almost when someone comes in front of me or in my mind, it's like all the files in my memory track are lifted into my mind, all my experience with you, my history, which is sometimes good and sometimes not so good. So it's like I look at you through the filter of this history, so you don't get the cleanliness of the feeling that... We'll have traffic control.
मुक्ति धाम तुम्हें जाना है, अपने सुकर्मों के बल पर ही सतयुग में तुमको आना है। शिव पिता को अब याद करो, ये संगम का स्वर्णिम युग है, शिव पिता फिर से आया है।
ब्रह्मामुख से शिव बाबा ने वही गीता ज्ञान सुनाया है।
कलयुग का अंत अब आया है, विकराल विनाश खड़ा आगे।
अब हम सबका शिव पिता ने बतलाया है।
शिव पिता को अब याद करो, पांडव शिव शक्ति सेना की रणभेरी अब फिर बजती है।
शिव बाबा के ज्ञान से फिर माया को मार भगाना है।
शिव पिता को अब याद करो, सतयुग में तुमको आना है। शिव पिता को अब याद करो, मुक्ति धाम तुम्हें जाना है, अपने सुकर्मों के बल पर ही सतयुग में अब तुम्हें आना है।
धाम में तुम्हें
सतयुग में अब तुम्हें आना है।
धाम में तुम्हें जाना है।
So we do have some time. If anyone wants to ask a question, there is or make a comment or whatever, most welcome. There's a microphone just at the front of the stage. But sometimes I have the thought that, we lead a really disciplined life. And actually, we make a lot of effort. We really do. When we get up early, we come to the Moli, and we pay attention to ourselves. I wonder how you feel, whether for all the effort you put into this life, do you feel you're really getting the result of the amount of effort being put in? Sometimes it seems like there's a lot of effort and less result. And one of those, I feel that sometimes it's not about just making effort, it's sort of the right effort. I only have a limited amount of energy. And I think often it's the fundamentals. Sometimes it's not just new ideas and new approaches, it's like practicing the fundamentals. The way I think of spiritual learning is that the learning which we had at school is we keep increasing the database of our information. We know so much, we expand it. But spiritual learning is like taking one concept and constantly practicing, going deeper into one idea. Who am I? I am the soul. It's lifelong learning. And even the practice of just putting the full stop, the practice of bodiless, just constantly doing it. And as I do, I build up an ability to, a fitness to do it. And actually that builds, it regains, it rebuilds the strength in the soul. So that really when the drama, the suddenly scenes of the drama do happen, I have my foundation. You know, it's there. I don't fear that it won't be there. Because the groundwork, I think, is the basics. And sometimes I think, you know, we're always looking for some magic point of knowledge that will just, you know, the light goes on. And that sometimes happens, there's no doubt. But to me, it's mainly really doing the fundamentals, not just knowing it and believing it, but experiencing it. And many times I've mentioned that in the 1980s, we came to Madhaban, all the double foreigner season, we were in Om Shanti Bhavan, we met Baba. I had been a BK for 10 years, and Baba said to the double foreigners, okay, do the course again. It was like he sent us back to square one. And he said, you know the knowledge and you speak it well, but you don't experience it. In other words, you don't apply it. Often I think when Baba uses the word churn, that's a strange word, isn't it, in English, at least. I think he means experience it. Contemplate it so deeply that it becomes a feeling inside, and that's when it has a real power. It's to use the knowledge in practical life. And I often wonder when I'm faced with criticism, I'm faced with disrespect, I'm faced with the challenges of life, observe. Is my first thought to knowledge, or is my first thought to my old stuff, my old reactions, my old hurt, ego, all that stuff? Or do I... Because that's a real indication. Am I really a knowledgeful soul, or do I just believe the knowledge like a devotee? You know, because when it's applied, it's really powerful. But it needs practice, there's no doubt. And that's why we're all here. But I think it's when we practice it, we really we feel I'm really getting somewhere. That it's really, you know, building that internal strength inside. Anyway, I don't know whether anyone wants to ask anything or ask a question, make a comment. Yes, please. Do you want to use the microphone? Because then everyone can hear, if you don't mind. There's a microphone just there. Might be nice if you don't mind introducing yourself and your country. That's okay. Oh, it's in Spanish?
Yes, in Spanish.
Do you need a translator?
Se me cayó.
It's okay. She can... Sister? She can... You'll have... Oh, she's...
Muchas veces las escenas del drama nos obligan a intercambiar acciones con almas, con diferentes almas. Y muchas veces nos suceden escenas muy desagradables con algunas almas. Y pasa el tiempo, yo creo que puse un punto final y vuelvo a encontrarme con esa misma alma en otra situación. Y la pregunta que me aparece después de esto que escuchamos, que para mí fue muy valioso, es cuando pongo punto
She'll
final.
need to translate. I think you'll have to let her translate. It might be... Sister, take the microphone and you can translate.
Yes.
Yeah.
Sometimes we have to interact with other souls, and we go into several scenes of drama, and then we apply a full stop, you know, and then the scenes are over, and then we meet these souls once again, and she's going to carry on.
Thank you.
Por lo tanto, el punto final, se me ocurre que para ser realmente final, debería ponerlo a la escena del pasado, no a esa alma que nuevamente se cruza en mi vida.
And so, applying the full stop, should I put the full stop actually in this? The full stop is applying in the scenes of drama, or is it in the soul? Like put the full stop in relationship with the soul, or is it in the full scenes of drama? How is it? How do we make it?
Please don't put a full
Perdón,
stop.
yo siento que de esa forma le permito a la otra persona la posibilidad de haber podido cambiar.
Because she feels that if she applies the full stop with the relationship with the person, maybe she is allowing the soul to change.
Yeah.
You know.
It's a really good point, actually, because you know how sometimes you move on in your life. You know, something's happened between you and somebody, and you've decided to let go and move on, but that person doesn't. And so when you come in front of them, they're still re-emerging all the feelings of situations of the past, and that's something I think we have to learn to deal with too, because, you know, I know this isn't exactly what you are asking, but I do feel that it's something we all have to come in front of, the vision of other people. You've moved on, you've changed, you've forgiven, but other people sometimes don't. And that's, if I absorb it, it's like then I'm still continuing the account. But if I'm detached at that point, so that person might be wanting to increase their account, they may not have knowledge, but I've decided to settle my account with that particular, in that scene, so that I can still have clean feelings for that person, you know, because, you know, it's not that we put a full stop to the soul. We're servers, but we can only serve others when we have a benevolent attitude. And if I hold the other stuff, I can't have a benevolent attitude towards them. But it definitely needs spiritual strength, doesn't it? Especially, there's almost sometimes a law, the people you're closest to are sometimes the hardest people to have good wishes for. Because you have a long karmic story with them, so you fluctuate between good wishes and other feelings. And therefore, I often feel it's easy to have good wishes for the world and all the souls of the world, but to have good wishes for those I live with and I interact with on a daily basis, that takes spiritual strength. It does. We all have to do that. But when I do, it's like I'm clearing the account. And I'm having the spiritual power to transform an account of give and take of sorrow into an account of give and take of respect. And sometimes if one person has the strength to do that, you can help lift another person out of that feeling. It takes time though, doesn't it? It definitely takes time. But we used to have a practice in the early days. There was this game that at night when you meditate, I don't know who, one of Daddy Janki's maybe, that almost look at the day like a film. It's a film, a whole reel of film, and almost observe the film and then put it back on the rack, because that film's not going to happen for another 5,000 years. It's like, sort of observe, learn. If I made a mistake, if I said things I regret, learn from it, but move on, so that you don't wake up the next morning with your whole head full of the business of the day before and the unresolved feelings, because then it's just like I'm permanently clogged, with feelings of the past. It really needs deep understanding of the knowledge and the drama to be able to do it. Yes, please.
Uma das coisas que a Daddy Yankee diz é que nós nunca devemos dizer que estamos demasiado ocupados, mesmo que a ocupação seja muita. O irmão Ken ele falou dessa situação, que ele disse para a Daddy Yankee: Daddy, eu estou muito ocupado. Ele disse: não diga que estás ocupado. Então, como ter então essa muita ocupação e não ser afetado por ela?
One of the things Daddy Yankee mentioned is that we should never say that we are too busy, even if we are too busy. And Brother Kenny also mentioned something about it. And how can we deal with it? Yeah, basically, how can we deal with this being too busy and never say no and always be ready, ever ready?
Yeah. I think, she's referring to a state of mind where, when you feel you've got a lot to do, you put pressure on yourself. I remember once we were in a call of time some years ago, and one of these executives, it was in Oxford, asked Daddy Yankee, and he said in a very sweet way, he said, Daddy, it's so lovely what you're talking about, and I really enjoy it, it's so good, all this, but we're too busy, we're too busy to practice. And Daddy looked at him with a lot of love and said, busyness is for lazy people. And really interesting answer, because what she was saying is that when we're lazy spiritually, and I really believe that busyness to a certain extent is a form of, in this world it's a form of denial. It's uncomfortable sometimes to look deeply. What is really going on? What am I really like? It's not a comfortable feeling. And so busyness keeps me on the surface, rushing, running. I don't have to think too deeply. I always remember in Australia, we had an exhibition many years ago, and a very sort of well-dressed man came up to the stand. And he asked some questions, and I said, are you interested in meditation? And he sort of hummed and hawed and said, well, I am, but I forget exactly what he said, but he said, I don't want to address it now because I know there's just too much in my life that's not truthful, It's like he really felt that he couldn't get out of the mode he was in, even though he believed there was a lot of stuff in his life that wasn't really accurate, I can say. So I think that it's good to be active physically, but mentally, if I'm over busy with all my karmic accounts, with the busyness of all the unprocessed feelings from the past, the busyness of always feeling things about people's behavior and how they are, if my mind is too mentally busy, then of course I can't even remember Baba in that way. And sometimes in the early days, I remember Baba used to talk about having plain remembrance. And many times he said to souls, if you wake up at Amrit Vela with a plain intellect, then Baba can touch you. But if your intellect's too busy with your own thoughts, your own analysis, your own stuff, then sometimes Baba can't get in there to really influence what is going on. So I think it's more that busyness. And as I was touching on before, I really believe that if we find yoga challenging, then a way of sort of dealing with that is running around in actions, in a sense. It's like a substitution, because if I find one part of my life difficult, I put energy into another part of my life. And that's why sometimes service becomes a substitution, because action is feeding my old way of being. And that's why I think it's good to be active, actually, and it's good to do service, but when it's from the right place,
Russian, I don't.
Can I just ask, did anyone else want to ask a question?
Я не знаю, если кто может перевести, я попробую, конечно, сам на английском, насколько это получится. Но если кто может. Мне интересно, как для того, чтобы поставить точку, да, но я попробую потом in English them.
Is there anyone to translate for you?
When in office you do picture for stopping, drawing picture for stopping, and when you see a picture, we different mind. No.
I'm sorry.
When you how you take a symbol and the state full stop. You have symbol picture. Ну, да. Ну, в принципе, я по-русски скажу, чтобы понятно было. То есть часто мы используем картинки, когда вот в доме, ну, в офисе вешаем для того, чтобы как-то менять свой ум и какие-то точки ставить. Уже не надеясь на себя, думаешь, увидел картинку, все, точка. Ну, то же самое, когда мы говорим «ача», там, «ом шанти», все, стопинг. Но вопрос в том, что какие вы используете картинки, вот, и используете ли вы вообще какие-то визуальные символы для того, чтобы поставить точку? Ну, какие у вас картинки в офисе висят?
Question is, do you use some pictures to be put on the wall in your office to help you to put last point, if it helps you? Because brother says he has a lot of them at home and office everywhere. Does it helps you? He thinks sometimes, we think sometimes he's...
You mean like a picture of Baba?
Oh, just picture of Baba, picture of... we can buy here a lot of beautiful pictures. Does it help you to put last point?
It may be able to help, but, you know, it's not that pictures of Baba are everywhere, you know, and it's more a mental practice. And even, you know, even Baba, you know, we have to remember without a physical picture in front of us. So it's like seeing the scenes of drama rather than allowing them to take over my thinking. I understand first though, because I believe until you understand, they will keep running in your mind. So that's where the understanding has to be deeply based on knowledge and wisdom, because then you'll feel it is resolved, and then I can move on. So it's more a mental picture than having a physical picture. It may help temporarily, but I think it's only temporary.
Thank you very much. I will translate the brother later.
Thank you for translating. Sister, this. Janet, do you want to ask something?
I want to ask a question regarding the Murli this morning. How can give us some tips, please, about checking and changing, especially related with laziness, and you know, well, that's all.
You know, I can remember when I first started with Baba, I asked the question, because, you know, everything's subtle in Brahman life. It's like sometimes we have laziness in my, you know, mentally or intellect. Because I can remember asking Daddy that, you know, sometimes I thought I had a lazy intellect. I didn't really engage with the knowledge as I really should have, because when you engage, your intellect feels really stimulated. I think, you know, the whole subject of subtle forms of carelessness, you know, I feel even this last year, and laziness, in this last year, Baba was actually saying that even Brahmins have become innocent of the law of karma. There's subtle aspects of the law of karma. It's a form of carelessness and laziness in one sense that, you know, we're not really seeing, and so we don't have that full happiness in that way. And so, yeah, I think that especially to do with the law of karma, I feel there's so many subtle things, you know. I have critical thoughts of other people, and it's to do with attention. I feel the whole thing about Brahman life, I prefer the word attention to effort. It's just having this gentle attention, seeing what's going on in my mind. Because if I'm a bit lazy, I allow other thoughts and feelings to come in, and then I take so much time to get them out again, you know. But if there's just that attention, what am I thinking? Owning my own attitude. When my attitude is a bit negative, you know, seeing that and changing it rather than allowing it to permeate and take hold inside my thinking. Janet.
I just wanted to share something actually. And
Please.
it's like having spent a long time sort of recognizing that the main thing in the soul was that the soul was always looking for love, and having got hurt and all of those things, coming to a point where I accept that having searched for love and wanted love, then to recognize that I then want to be love, so then that helps to overcome the situation. So when you were talking about putting a full stop, I can recognize the significance in it, but for me it's like if I have a certain title, like I've committed to God to be love, then automatically it enables me to put a full stop, because like say for example the night that Baba came, I got back to my room and I was asleep and the sisters all came in and they were all talking really loudly and they woke me up. So for the first 15 seconds I was irritated, and then I said to myself, well, I came here to be love, I didn't come here to get anything. So I put my thinking right, and then I said to the sisters, you know, very sweetly, is it possible that you would mind just talking a little less loudly, because that would be really nice if you don't mind. So the next day they came and apologized and I didn't even know what they were talking about. So what I realized is that if I hadn't done that in my head, then I would have probably been kept awake by my own waste thoughts about the sisters, not by the noise. So for me, putting a full stop is having a certain title that I'm committed to, and then I keep asking myself, what's more important, this or love, that or love? And so it comes back to, you know, if we can think of one particular thing that we want to be, it's much easier then to put a full stop, or, you know, get rid of laziness or all of those different things, because there's something else that's more interesting. And that kind of keeps me excited about this life. So.
Thank you. That was lovely. Okay, well it's 12:30 and that means lunchtime. So, so thank you everyone, and we will finish as we always do with a few minutes of meditation. Thank you.